Everyone. I'm Sylvia Shulkin, Chairman of the Steering Committee of the League of Women Voters of Falmouth, and we're very pleased that you could be here tonight. Many of you have heard this before, but it bears repeating. The League is a nonpartisan political organization, and that's a rarity in these polarized times. We're nonpartisan because we never support a candidate or political party, and we're political because we take positions on public policy issues based on our study of authoritatively verified facts. By the way, gentlemen, League membership is open to men as well as women. The League of Women Voters encourages informed participation in government, and casting an informed vote is one way you can all participate in government. Tonight's Candidates Night will give you a chance to inform yourselves by listening directly to what the candidates have to say. And at some point in the evening, the candidates will be answering your questions. Our gratitude to our partner in this event, FCTV, and they've been broadcasting these events over the years. They're here tonight broadcasting, and they're taping this program too. So if you want to watch it again at some odd hour of the day or night, we encourage you to do so. Look at the schedule for FCTV to see when you can view this program at home. We want to give a shout out to Engage Falmouth for publicizing this Candidates Night on its website and for its efforts to get out the vote. And that vote will take place on May 15th, unless you vote ahead of time, which you certainly can do at the clerk's office. And of course, we give special recognition to our Voter Service Chair, Carol McKeon, and the Voter Service Committee, Alice Carey, Marcy Easterling, Judy Fenwick, Olive Ann Hobby, Judy Stetson, and Joanne Treestman. They designed this event, and they put all those pesky little moving pieces together. We hope those pieces stay in place for the duration of this program. Finally, a tribute to all our candidates for taking the time and effort to run for public office. Our moderator is Mindy Todd, WCAI's award-winning radio journalist. We thank her for volunteering her services tonight to the League and to the community. Mindy?
Thanks. Welcome. Glad everybody could be out here this evening. We're going to start with the candidates for the town meeting members. If you want to line up at that microphone that Sylvia's putting right up there now, they're going to give us a brief introduction to themselves. And I thought I turned it on. All right. I don't know why it's not working. Peter? It's supposed to. It says it's on, but we'll start with the town meeting members. Go ahead. Is there a volume control? Yep. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Jim Fox. I'm a candidate for Precinct 1. I've been a town meeting member in Precinct 2 and Precinct 4, and I'm now have moved to Precinct 1. I'm currently chairman of the planning board, and I've worked on the EDIC, and I brought the solar project and the accessory apartment bylaw to town meeting. So I have a lot of experience. I hope you consider me as a candidate. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Doug Jones. I'm running for re-election for Precinct 1 town meeting member.
Hello, I'm Peter Clark. I'm running again for town meeting member from Precinct 1. Thank you.
We're all the number ones here. I'm Judy Fenwick, and I'm running again for a 3-year term in Precinct 1 as town meeting member.
Hi, I'm Sandy Feynman Silva. I'm running for a 3-year term in Precinct 2. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Holly Wilson, and I also am running for a 3-year term in Precinct 1. Second 3-year term. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura LaRusso Peterson, and I'm running for a 3-year term in Precinct 3.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Abrams. I'm in Precinct 1, running for town meeting member. I've been on the Board of Library Trustees for 17 years and currently chair.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Harris. I'm running for a 3-year term in Precinct 5. It will be my first term if I win.
Hi, I'm Linda Toby. I'm running for town meeting member, Precinct 4. Spent a lot of time in Precinct 4. I actually taught at the East Falmouth School for 35 years. And I do volunteering, so I have a chance to get to know people in the community. And I've enjoyed being a town meeting member, and I hope to do it again. Thank you.
I'm Catherine O'Brien Bumpus, and I'm running for re-election for Precinct 1.
I'm Mary Harris, and I'm also running for re-election, but in Precinct 5, and I'm also a member of the Town Finance Committee.
Hi, Melissa Keefe. I'm running for re-election for Precinct 4. I'm also a school committee member. Thanks.
I'm Charlie McCaffrey, and I'm running for my 3rd term from Precinct 5.
My name is Misty Niemeyer, and I'm running for town meeting member in Precinct 9. This will be my first year, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm a co-founder and leadership member for Engaged Falmouth. Thank you very much.
I'm John Nolan of Precinct 1, running for a 3-year term.
I'm Vicki Lowell. I'm running in Precinct 1 for another term. I think I'm trying to beat Dick Kendall for longevity in town meeting.
All right, thank you. I did not see Dave Vieira. Dave is not here? All right, Dave's not here, and neither, sorry, okay. So while we're having the contested races, the Falmouth Library trustees, if they want to come up and take their seats here. And if you want to know more about the town meeting members, you can go to the town website, or you can go to engagefalmouth.org and find out more information. Do we have our library folks? You want to come on up? I'll mention the format while they are taking their seats. They will have 1 minute to answer questions. They'll have 2 minutes for closing. Judy and Alice here in the front, Judy Stetson and Alice Carey will be the timekeepers. So when you see that time go up, that will mean your time is up. Finish your sentence. If not, I'm going to be forced to cut you off. Okay? We don't have opening statements, just closing statements. I'm going to start right with questions. First, I'm going to introduce the candidates: Michael Corrigan, Margaret Fennell, Kathy Mount, excuse me, and Kathleen Murray. First question, and we'll start here with you, Michael. What service does the library currently provide that you particularly value?
I particularly value the fact that the library provides a service to all residents of Falmouth, young or old, whether you're a fisherman, a gardener, a biker, a hiker, whatever you are. It's the one place in town where everybody in Falmouth gets to go, and I think that's very important. A library is a very civilizing thing, and it belongs to everybody in the community, just like the League of Women Voters supports all the community action. And I think that's what a library does. Best of all, it's a service for everyone, not just for a select group or this interest or that interest. It's for everybody. I myself have been involved with the Joy of Learning lectures. I'm on my 9th series right now. And I think that's great for some people, but it's great for the kids. It's great for everybody who wants a resource, whether or not you have any particular interest in Falmouth. If you're a member of the Falmouth community, you belong in the library, and that's what the library does.
Thank you. Margaret.
I think that all the services that the library provides are my favorites because there are so many excellent programs that they do. I enjoy the North Falmouth Library because that's up in my area. And I think that all of the programs that they provide are, as Michael said, they're all ages and all kinds of people and all kinds of interests.
Thank you, Kathy.
I think that the main service the Falmouth Public Library provides is as a gathering place for our community. There are, of course, gathering places for many different information resources. We can physically visit to obtain information, or we can actually also do it online. However, whether you go electronically or physically to the library, it feels like you're being gathered in the sense of sharing a common space and a positive experience. So much goes on in our libraries, as we've been talking about. If you go on to line to check this out, you'll really be amazed. Adults and children both gather here in the Herman Room, where various activities are held for all different ages. Adults attend the League of Women Voters programs like this that are here, Science Before Supper talks, Joy of Learning lectures, a never-ending list. And groups are meeting in the library constantly, the scouts, the book clubs, the newcomers, the list is huge. Most of all, we thank our library staff because all the gathering that happens in a very friendly, welcoming atmosphere.
Thank you. You got to be closer to the microphones, I'm told. So Kathleen, move right into the microphone.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to share.
I think the most important thing, it's a community center. I mean, looking at this room now, it's a gathering place for knowledge in books, but it could be a gathering place to have discussions. And this is a great place to have a discussion group. It has great programs, it has great events, and I know I've been to a number of them. And of course, there's always the books. I like the various fiction and the nonfiction section, but I've also had help when I needed something in the software program. And I've just been told how to use lynda.com, which is what, if you go to the library website, you go in there and you can take courses in a number of subjects, and I wasn't even aware of it till some time ago. So I do value the software that we offer to people.
Thank you. Next question, Margaret, we'll start with you this time. What do you hope to accomplish if elected library trustee?
I hope that we'll be able to continue the great programs that we have. But we also will need to expand some of the programs, such as simply expanding some of the hours. And that means that we'll have to advocate for the resources that will be necessary for that. And I think that that's going to be a big job because there's a lot of competition for the tax dollars these days. So I hope to advocate to continue all the excellent programs we have, and I hope to work to find ways to expand the programs that we have.
Thank you, Kathy. Same question. Yeah, just bring the mic right up to you.
Oh, okay. I also feel that there's a lot of people who feel that they would love to have the hours increased that we are having the library open, especially the mornings on Tuesday and Wednesday morning. But then again, this is a problem of our limited resources that the library has. The programs are wonderful, and I would love to see them expanded and continue and enjoyed by everyone because they're it's such a wonderful place to have these things right here in our libraries.
Kathleen?
Well, I agree with that, but I also think we have to improve and add to our digital programming because more and more people come in and want the DVDs, e-books, books on tape, and I think that, and also for that, we have to offer staff training. The staff, one person will learn something, and then they will actually use their time together to teach others. So we need to instruct our staff so they can instruct us, and I think that's very important.
Well, one of the things I hope to do is to make clear the distinction between what a library does and the internet. The internet is useful. I have all my students use it. There's a lot of information on there. There's a lot more misinformation and bad information. Whereas with a library, you get the good stuff. And the librarians know that. And that's the point I want to make and make clear to people. Why in this internet age do we still need a library? Why is a library still important? And it's important because of the validity of information that a library conveys that the internet, sadly enough, does not always convey. And I think we need to make that point when we make the case, as others have said, for an expanded library service, both in North Falmouth and elsewhere, that we need to show why the library, in spite of the internet, is still valid, still useful, and still essential to learning things and getting things right.
Thank you. This time, Kathy, we start with you. What do you view as the Falmouth Public Library's most important current role in community life?
I think a lot what I said earlier as a gathering place, to have as a gathering place because we are so central here and our community can enjoy coming to have these activities here and continuing to have them. And
Thank you, Kathleen.
I think I have to agree with that. This is the community center. I'll always remember the day we opened after the renovation, and we had 2,000 Falmouth residents come through that day. They know this is their library, and they're very proud of their library, and those that use the branches are very proud of the branches. So I think the community service in both the materials provided and how we use the building are the important things.
Thank you. Michael?
Well, I agree. Of course, I think we all agree that the library is the important community center. It's where everybody comes. To me, a library is the most civilizing thing that a community does. It's what makes us society work, our democracy work, and we all come together here. And I think that's what's so important. That's what we have to keep the library doing. And when I teach or do my lectures on the joy of learning, I see young kids coming in too. I see all ages, all people going elsewhere in the library. They don't come to Joy of Learning all the time. They go elsewhere. That's important. That everything is available here, and that's why we need this library, and we need to promote this library. That's what I hope to do. You know, I did a newspaper column for a number of years, and I would do that again as much as I could to promote the idea, hey, Falmouth, this is your library. We already know thousands of people in Falmouth know that. We want even more to know that and use this library.
Thank you. Margaret?
I think that the role that they provide is very basic in terms of providing legitimate, accurate sources for information. And they also provide the means to make that information available, such as online or on the shelves on hard copies, and other ways that they have the education programs, the children's story hours, the adult education, the gatherings like this one. And that's the role that this library really plays, and it is central to the town.
Kathleen, we start with you this time. In what ways will the library's role change as the population becomes increasingly computer literate and technology savvy?
I think we will still have lots of people coming to the library. There will always be a need for books, but yes, they are also getting computer literate, and that is very important because they need to know how accurate the information is that they are getting on the computer or on the various software programs. So I think that is important for the library to keep up with. And again, I go back, the staff has to keep up on their training so they can keep up on all these items for the library.
Thank you. Michael?
Yes, the library role will change as the library has to explain to people and convince people why it's still important in this so-called internet age of information. What I would say also is an age of misinformation sometimes, sadly enough, and we all know that's been the case. What the library has to do is continue to explain what it can do, how it can validate information for people, how it can help them do the research, how it can help them sort the wheat from the chaff, if you will, out there. And only a library does that. The internet doesn't do it by itself, but a library does do that. And that's what's absolutely essential about a library, is it can provide that kind of validated information, that kind of way of looking at what's out there and seeing what's good and what's not good. A library does that. The internet doesn't.
Thank you. Margaret?
I think the role will continue to be one of providing legitimate, valid information, but they will need to change the ways that they provide it. They'll need to increase the variety of formats, how the information is provided, and the available access routes for the information. They'll need to increase probably the remote access for the information that they have. For example, access to online subscriptions will be increased. And another important item is that they will need to think in a valid way about safety as the technology increases. They'll need to think about cybersecurity and physical security of the collections and security of the online information and physical security.
Thank you. Kathy?
As we become more computer savvy, it will continue to be necessary to listen to the public, to weigh the costs and the benefits of new technologies. This will all need to be accomplished while we keeping an appropriate balance with the demand for more traditional sources. I think it's stated very clearly in the strategic plan that the library has for 2017 through 2021. It states that the library is an adaptive organization that believes that leadership, innovation, and learning, and investing in the staff, technology, and infrastructure will improve service to the community. And I agree with that statement, and that, I think, is what the library is trying to do and is doing.
Hey, thank you. All right, Michael, we start with you this time. Given budgetary constraints, what library services would you prioritize for funding?
Okay, I would prioritize for funding. The first thing is the reference librarians and the librarians who help people find out information. That's what we have to do. I'd like to keep the hours as long as they can, but we know that with the funding limitations that we have around here, that may be the first thing we take a hit on. And I don't see any way around it. We need to develop the satellite libraries too, like the one we all talk about here is the North Falmouth Library, and I say that because I'm from North Falmouth. But that's what we need to do, is to have more services more widely available. That's how we prioritize. And maybe the hours of operation can't be what we would like them to be. We'd like the libraries to be open all the time, but they can't be. But we'd like to have as many libraries as we can have available to people so that people throughout the community of Falmouth, everywhere, can get access to library services that are so essential, again, to making this a civilized community, a community that serves everybody all the time. People with young children can't always make the trip into town, in the middle of town, but if they have a local library, local satellite library, they can do a lot for their kids, and I think that's important.
Thank you. Margaret?
I think I would consider prioritizing ways to increase the resources. Keep the programs that we've got that are excellent, but look for ways that we can increase the resources, maybe cut some costs. But we need to keep really all the programs that we have and expand those programs, including the hours. But we need to look for new ways, new resources that we could use. Maybe it's more cross-fertilization with other programs that are part of the town of Falmouth, programs that are part of the school system. Maybe we can prioritize expanding programs with some of those ideas.
Thank you. Kathy?
I would like to see us continue to hear what the public wants and what they would like to see increased in the library. I know that the library does a lot to try to use their resources the best way possible. They have librarians who will go to the other libraries, to the East Falmouth Library and the North Falmouth Library, to do storytelling, which is a big boon for them to have a storytelling in their libraries and trying to share the resources that we do have with others.
Thank you. Kathleen?
Well, because I've been a trustee, I know that some of this is done by law. We are covered by this, not only the state law, but we also have the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, and we are required to have so many hours a week that the library is open. At one time during that depression, we did get a waiver, and the town worked very hard to return the hours to us, so we could not, they gave us a waiver for just 1 or 2 years. And so we are covered by that, and the town is required to give us so much, a certain percentage for materials, and these materials can be books or software. So those things we will not reduce because those are covered by law. And the extra things will be what the rest of the town is giving up or not having in their budget.
All right, thank you. I do not have any audience questions for you, so we're going to move on to closing comments, and this time, Margaret, we'll start with you. You have 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes.
I think that the library in Falmouth is a real gem, and we need to continue it. We need to continue the services. We need to expand the services, and we need to make sure that people know about the services that are available from the library. There are so many services, and it can actually help people to not only expand their education, but it can help people to save money too. And we might be able to resource some of the other departments in town to cross-fertilize a little bit. For example, the Solid Waste Management Committee is looking for ways to educate people so that we can save money on and recycle more. Maybe the libraries can take part in this education. They can be an avenue for providing the information to people, maybe demonstrations. We have to explore these kind of cross-fertilization ideas. And I think we need to make sure that we continue with the CLAMS program as well. Nobody has mentioned that yet. because everybody knows about it and everybody uses it, I guess. And it's so valuable, and it's so wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
Well, in closing, I thought maybe I would tell you a little bit about myself so you can have an idea why I'm so anxious to serve as a library trustee. Some of my happiest childhood memories are of summers in our family's cottage on Wacoit Bay. I slept in the loft, I caught crabs in the creek, I took life-saving at the yacht club, and I sailed our family's knockabout. I went to college at George Washington University, where I received a bachelor degree and a master's degree in international relations. There I worked for the Department of Commerce, and then later I moved to New York, where I worked for the Federal Reserve Bank. While I attended a wedding in Falmouth, I met my husband, and later we got engaged and married here. Our decision to join the diplomatic service was a comfortable one for me because of my educational background, and Austria was the first of 5 countries in which we lived. Fortunately for us, both of our parents were retired in Wacoit, so Falmouth became our home away from home. We're a family of readers, and multiple trips were made to the East Falmouth Library during those summers. Now our children and grandchildren are enjoying our libraries. As they are growing up, our grandchildren have replaced going to storytelling with heading to the computers to look up their favorite authors.
I'm going to have to stop you there. Time, Kathy, I'm sorry. Kathleen?
Well, I have enjoyed being a trustee for the past few years, and I'd like to continue because there's still things to be done. I would like to see more programming. I would like to do things that would increase our civic discussions so we can become better educated citizens. Of course, we always have those wonderful books. I would like to see our digital collection grow and grow and grow, because this is what people will be asking over the years. I want to see well-trained staff, because the staff, if anybody says, what's good about your library, almost the first thing people mention, it's the staff. We have a fabulous staff, and I want to support them as well as I can because they are so wonderful. I think we want to say the center of community life. I love being considered the library is the center of Falmouth, and I think that says something about what Falmouth represents to everybody. And then I also want to just say thank you to the League for doing this. I think that's great, and to FCTV. And for all of you people here and watching it on TV, and don't forget to vote May 15th, and please consider a vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
Well, thank you. Falmouth has become my hometown. I grew up in an Army family. I went right into the Navy, and at the age of 50, I came here to Falmouth in 1991. To my 30th home, my 30th domicile. I said, this is my hometown. I want to do something for Falmouth. And where I think I can do the best for Falmouth is in working with the library, being a library trustee. In my Navy career of 25 years commissioned service, I was in academic life, teaching at a college level for 12 of those 25 years. And since I retired, I've been at Boston University for the last 25 years teaching. In all those jobs, I knew the importance of a library. I knew how to tell students how to use a library. I went to libraries. I worked with librarians. I think I know a little bit about librarians from the user angle rather than, say, as a librarian myself or as a board member. I came at the user end of things, and I want to help. I think I can contribute something there. I've done a lot of work in this area, and that's what I want to do. I think my service, my business with libraries has helped me do that. So I have served in other capacities in Falmouth, on the Falmouth Community Television, as a matter of fact, on the Cable Advisory Board, Charter Review Committees 1 and 2. I was chair of number 2. But I want to do even more for Falmouth as I sort of wind down my career at Boston University. I want to come to this town, my hometown. I have a hometown, finally, after many years, and I want to do something for Falmouth. And I think I can best do that in the library. I've looked at all the people here who...
Thank you, Michael. That is time.
One of us
I
will
want to
lose,
thank our
but
candidates
Falmouth won't lose.
Michael Corrigan, Margaret Fennell, Kathy Mountain, Kathleen Murray. Thank you all, and thank you for sticking to the times. Appreciate it. All right, candidates for school committee. If we can have the candidates for school committee come on up. Okay, thank you. And again, the same format. We will have 1 minute to answer questions, 2 minutes for closing at the end. And our candidates are 3 seats, a 3-year term, and our candidates are John Fenari, Natalie Kanelopoulos, James Newman, and Kelly Welch. Thank you all four. Our first question, we'll start with you, John. What has motivated you to run for school committee?
Well, I can say to the folks in this room right now, one of the benefits of running is you're under the air conditioning right here, because it is quite. No, what's motivating me is actually to make an impact on the students of Falmouth, and realizing that the students and the children are the future of Falmouth, there's nothing more critical. And within that, I have a personal vested interest. I have 3 children that are in the Falmouth school system. I'm very proud. My wife Beth and I have chosen to have our kids stay in the Falmouth school system. They're not going somewhere else. They're staying here. And I want to be part of the solution.
Great.
Thank you. Natalie?
Yes. I am running for school committee to give back. Do I need this microphone? Is this better?
Yeah,
Okay.
bring it closer to you.
Okay, nice and close. Okay. I'm running for school committee to give back and serve the district that helped to shape my life. I was fortunate to grow up in Falmouth and attend public schools, starting at East Falmouth Elementary School and ultimately graduating from Falmouth High School. My desire to join the school committee is rooted in my belief that every child deserves an education that stimulates curiosity, inspires lifelong learning, and prepares them to become productive and engaged citizens of the world. That every child deserves to have school-based opportunities that nurture their whole being, academically, socially, athletically, and artistically. That every child deserves equal access to educational opportunities regardless of the socio-economic background from which they come, and that every child needs the tools and support to come to school ready to learn. These would be my guiding principles if elected to school committee.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I'm the father of 3 kids who've gone through the Falmouth Public Schools. I added it up, it's 37 student years, and one that still has 2 more to go. In the process, I've gotten to know a lot of the teachers, a lot of the administrators, have a huge amount of admiration for all of them. I don't think I've met anybody who works in the schools whose heart isn't in the right place and isn't pulling for all our children and through our children for the whole town. The school committee is the linchpin that ties the town to the schools in a formal sense, and it's really critical that it operate well, that the school committee members speak with a single voice, and that they communicate well with both the schools represented by the superintendent and the town itself, and I'd like to be a part of that.
Thank you. Kelly?
First, I want to say thank you for having us tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to answer questions and have people hear us. So like everyone else, I also have kids in the district. I'm a Wash Ashore, but they are definitely not, and this will always be their home. So I'm invested in the district and in the community. Mostly, though, I really like it. I really enjoy serving on the school committee. This will be my first term. I ran for 1 year, and then this is my second, third 3-year term that I'm running for, and I really enjoy working with the administration, with the other school committee members, with our student advisor, and all the members of the staff that come through our meetings. I find it really interesting and engaging work. And I'm particularly looking forward to working with the next superintendent and being part of her first year here in Falmouth after leading the search to hire her. I think right now I know her better than anyone else, actually, because I've engaged with her so much. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. All right, Natalie, we start with you this time. What is the Falmouth Public Schools' role in teaching citizenship and public engagement to all students?
Falmouth schools should play a primary role in teaching citizenship and public engagement to all students beginning in elementary school. I agree with the district's approach of embedding a civics education throughout the curriculum across disciplines, while also having civics taught in a traditional classroom setting. All schools in Falmouth offer age-appropriate social studies and community learning projects, such as East Falmouth Elementary School's Peace Builder Model and Mullen-Hall's Student Government Program. High school students participate in activism and with local organizations such as Engage Falmouth. Schools should prepare students to become positively engaged in the community by ensuring that all students have an understanding of the tenets of American democracy and the importance of civic engagement. Teaching from a global perspective and understanding how events are interconnected is vital for creating an informed student. The education should have a historic foundation and also align with the current political and cultural climate of not only the United States, but of the world.
Thank you. James?
So everyone knows this is a question that we were prepared for. But I think we'll all agree that it's vital that our future adults understand the functioning of all levels of government and hopefully get involved, and at a minimum do some volunteering. The schools are already doing an awful lot. There's a plan here that I brought along that works through all grade levels, takes the state standards and applies them, adds some innovative new programs, and I think there's actually an awful lot going on that's pretty impressive. One of the things is third and fourth graders do student government at the Mullen Hall School. I think there's room for moving that to all the elementary schools. It sounds like it's a very successful program. So I think there's an adjustment there that could possibly be done. Volunteerism obviously is a huge part of what we want our kids to learn and learn from. Currently at the high school, the honors society students are required to do volunteer time.
Thank you.
But everyone should be.
Kelly?
Thank you.
Jim stole my thunder because I was going to speak to the exact same report. So civics are, of course, a huge responsibility of the schools, and we take it very seriously. The study that we put together a few years ago looked at all the different levels throughout the district and how civics was being integrated in a real way into learning, not just in an information-giving kind of way, but in actual practical examples. And I think that's, civic engagement starts with the engagement piece. Kids learn by what they experience and what they see other people do. So we're really lucky that we have such an integrated volunteerism program in the district because we have VIPs. And through VIPs, kids they see other adults volunteering, and so that becomes something that is a normal activity for them and something to model. I mean, my kids are engaged in politics because I'm engaged in politics. They do what we do, not what we tell them to do. And that the VIPS program isn't just about bringing outsiders in, but also the kids volunteering themselves.
Thank you. John?
Yes, as far as I echo the sentiment that folks have shared with the existing civics programs that we have in the schools, within the course of the 3 years that I've served and the volunteer time that I've served, I got to know all the different principals at the different schools, spent multiple occasions at each school, and the different staff will, support and say, oh, I've seen him around quite often. And in the course of that, I see the activities that the students are doing, that they're engaged in, and the programs that they have are working. I see some young people in the room right here with us right now that did a great job of exercising their analyzing situations and marshaling themselves together and making a statement. And they made a big impact on our town, and I'm proud of them. And I'm proud to be part of a school committee that worked with them in a harmonious way that really allowed them to make a statement, but by also respecting the other kids who might not share in that same statement. I think there's nothing better than that.
James, we start with you this time. Today's students face a variety of personal and societal challenges that impact their ability to learn. These challenges can include learning disabilities, an unstable home, substance abuse, and online dangers. So what should the public schools in Falmouth do to reduce the impact of these problems on student learning?
Wow.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's, that's what the teachers and the administrators are living every day.
A little bit closer to the mic.
I'm sorry. Yeah, obviously this question is part of what the schools are living every day, the teachers, the administrators. It's a huge challenge. I'm hard pressed to address it in a cohesive way in 1 minute. I do have a background working with kids with IEPs at the Penikese Island School, where I was a board member for many years, and got to know what life is like for kids who need a lot of special attention. But trying to summarize how the school should do that in a minute is beyond me.
All right. Thank you. Kelly?
I think you could struggle to do it in an hour, better yet a minute. So I think that the district is doing a lot of the right things to try and reduce the impact of all of those issues on student learning. Things like the program with McLean Hospital that offers additional guidance to staff on anxiety and students that are struggling with depression or suicidal ideation. We're already working on those things. I think also offering, having things in place for really young kids that are struggling to try and mitigate the ongoing impact that it can have if an elementary kid is struggling and doesn't get support, that just rolls over into the following years. So having additional guidance counselors at really young ages, which we're already working on, and having training for our teachers on what all these things look like in the classroom. A student that's acting out, it might not be at all about acting out. They might have had a parent who OD'd last night. So knowing what that kind of trauma, how it manifests, our teachers need to be educated and well trained on how to handle that.
Thank you, John.
Well, what you have to do is care, number one. And really, we've got a good number of, a lot of folks in the district that care and that they listen to what the kids are doing. There's good programs like was mentioned, McLean Hospital. There's another good program that parents can attend discussing things that are hidden in plain sight, and they have a teenager's room and seeing little telltale signs that you might not really jump out at you, but when you go to this program, you see, wow, that's something that is an indicator of another type of behavior, be it drugs or what have you. But just to care and be engaged, but to walk that fine line also of respecting people's privacy, and that's the balancing act that our teachers and our administrators have to do, of giving the parents the information, but caring and listening is step one.
Thank you. Natalie.
Good, and I would just echo everything that has already been said and say that I think the district and the teachers and the support staff are already doing an excellent job. It is such a challenge. I volunteer at East Falmouth Elementary School, and it's one of the schools hit the hardest by all of the things that are occurring in Falmouth. And to see those teachers that don't stop, they are there in the evenings, they're there on the weekends. So I think they are phenomenal about connecting families with community resources and being there to provide wraparound services to the children as well.
Thank you. And I don't have the audience questions. They took them away. So, Sylvia, if you want to find out, oh, right here. Beautiful. Okay. I was like, okay, where did they go? All right. So this time, I believe it is Kelly's turn to start. Do you feel that Falmouth classrooms are being fully supported in the budget? If not, why not?
That puts me on the spot. I'm on the budget subcommittee. I don't want to get myself in any trouble. So I think we have done a really good job of using the funds that we have to meet the highest demands. But I think like everything, there's always the additional needs that we see. We know that we would like to have a family resource center, but we don't have the money for it. And personally, I would love to see better food in the cafeterias and smaller classrooms at kindergarten or at elementary and middle school, but we don't have the money for that either. It's a balancing act because we're the school department, but we're part of the town, and it's the town's money, and we're all in it together. So I would never want to have a family resource center at the expense of a firefighter. We all need to balance those needs across the town, and whatever that looks like. I think that's what good financial stewardship is.
Thank you, John.
Well, I've had a chance to be involved with some of the different food programs and researching some of the new food programs. And I have to say that I like the food in the cafeterias. I mean, I think that's an easy target. I like that. But with regards to I'm also on the budget subcommittee, and I'm very proud of working with our town finance committee, who now has earned a AAA bond rating. And I do think, we do a good focus on allotting the budget. A superintendent, Dr. Taylor, and also Patrick Murphy, our finance director, do a very good job of really what are the needs, and then using some of the different resources that we have between varying grants and everything and applying them properly that they are doing a good job, and you just always want to fine tune things. So I would say we're on track.
Thank you. Natalie?
Thank you. I would just like to say, as an observer, one thing I appreciate is the school committee and even central office, they prioritize people. And so it's the teachers that are helping the kids. It's the support staff that help the teachers. So I think that they do a great job. Congratulations, good job, on prioritizing the budget in support of the people. It's people first.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I agree. It's a matter of balance, and certainly the schools administrators are doing a good job overall of providing that balance. I did get a copy of the school's budget. I left it over my chair rather than bring it over here and fill up the table. But I've gone through it in the last few weeks and had a long conversation with the finance director, Patrick Murphy. I do think there's room, certainly on the part of the school committee, to have better information about the budget. It was hard to discern trends. You know, as the budget rises, what is forcing that rise? You know, what proportion of the budget is spent on whatever you happen to be concerned with? I think I would welcome the opportunity to work with Mr. Murphy on providing that better information to the school committee.
Thank you. John, we start with you this one. This is, are you for or against a multi-purpose turf field?
Being part of the original field committee, I am for it.
That's all you want to say? Okay. Natalie?
I knew this question was going to come up. So yes, I am also in support of it. It is a really big decision. I feel at the school committee and the rec department, they vetted all options, and the students need a new field. The existing fields are inadequate, and they pose injury risks and safety issues. So yes, I am for the new field.
James?
Me too. I was at the meeting where the school committee overwhelmingly approved the project, and I followed it carefully over the years. I think the process has been difficult, but the school committee's decision was rational, and I certainly support it. I think there are valid arguments on both sides of the turf versus grass issue, but I think on balance, the turf field is the right answer. I think it's time we do the override and build the field. I also want to note that this isn't important just for our youth, as the signs say, but also for our elders, because it's really critical to making the senior center work as a total space.
Thank you. Kelly?
I don't know how I didn't know this question was going to be coming. I should have seen it in the stars. When we first started talking about the field, and this was some years ago, as John mentioned, we had a turf field committee before this turf field committee, and we worked for we worked for a year just within the school committee and did a lot of research. And when we started that, I was dead set against turf, but after doing so much homework and learning so much about the evolution of turf and about the needs in the district, that was also when the Gale report came out, and about the hazards of grass. And I learned so much that I am completely in favor of the turf field now. I think it's not just a school issue, it's a community-wide issue.
Thank you. Natalie, we start with you this time. What are your ideas for assuring school security?
I think in terms of school security, you have to have a very delicate balance in between being an open place where parents feel welcome and also volunteers feel welcome as well, with keeping the kids safe. I appreciate the fact that the schools have implemented buzzer systems and cameras. I know that some schools are looking at furthering that one step further, where you have to present a license, and that way they have a concrete list of who is in the schools. But we have to keep the schools safe while also keeping them open. We don't want children to feel that they're in a prison.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I agree. It's all a matter of balance, and it's a hard issue. The safety of our children is obviously vital, and one incident could do horrible damage. At the same time, we don't want our schools to be prisons, and give up the effectiveness of them as places of learning and having fun and so on. So there's no way to get around having a balance. I was at the safety meeting a couple weeks ago at the high school, and those were the exact words the superintendent used. We can't turn our schools into prisons. That was in response to a question about why we don't have metal detectors at the doors.
Thank you. Kelly?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it is a really fine line between being prepared and doing all we can do, and doing all we can do that's reasonable so that it still feels like a place for kids. But there are still a lot of things that we can and do. We have the buzzer system, like Natalie mentioned. We also train staff on what to do in an emergency situation so that they feel prepared, because they're the quiet voice and they need to not be panicking if it seems like everyone else is panicking. And we need to continue to develop our relationships with the local police and fire departments, because they're the ones that respond. So having quality relationships there can only help us. We practice everything. We practice drills, we practice fire drills and reunification drills, and beyond that, I think that we can look into and research other options that make schools more safe within the boundaries of not making them prisons.
Thank you, John.
I have a lot of ideas for school security, but I can't share them with anyone because then it wouldn't be secure. No, all kidding aside, but that is a component that actually has to be weighed in. What do you share? So you have the open meeting law where you have to cover things, but then how many things do you actually share? It's a brave new world. I have a special needs daughter, and then to have her come home and say, amongst the other dynamics that she's addressing, well, we had a lockdown today. I mean, it's a scary world that we live in, but it's a world that we have to address. We're doing it. We have implementation in place. The procedures that people, again, just like with the drug and the challenges with the students, listening is step one, and being attentive and closing the door behind you when you're going in. Don't worry about offending the person behind you. There's a system. And then just in general, there's other dynamics that we may implement which involve not staying in one place and then doing different procedures. So we're not here, and then we know there's an attacker that's across the hall. Let's leave if we can.
We're going to move on to closing statements, and James, you begin up to 2 minutes now.
Thank you, everybody, for being here, and thank you to the League for putting this on. Professionally, I'm an engineer. I've had my own business in Falmouth for 20 years. I've also been a volunteer in a number of education-oriented organizations. I've had a very long involvement with the Penaquis Island School, where I was a board member, a board chair, and where I'm still very involved, and I get to drive their boat. I'm also one of the founding board members of the Falmouth STEM Boosters, which is an organization that makes connections between the Falmouth Public Schools and the STEM-oriented businesses and organizations in Falmouth. The STEM Boosters' philosophy of promoting community involvement in the schools with strong teacher input is central to my reasons for running for the school committee. I've also been on the board of the Falmouth Baseball Boosters, a VIPS volunteer, and a science fair judge and mentor. The schools are obviously critical to the futures of our children, but they're also critical to the whole town. Our children are the future of the town, and the quality of the schools helps us attract people and businesses to town. Strong public schools are in the interest of everyone, not whether or not they have kids in the schools. And the school committee is a critical link between the town and the schools. It needs to operate smoothly and with one voice to ensure that the schools are able to function at their best. I look forward to working on all these issues if you see fit to elect me to the school committee. And thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
So contrary to what you might think if you fall asleep watching the school committee meetings that go on really late, I'm a big fan of being brief and ending early. So I will just be very short and say that, I sent out an email ages ago that said, sharing with my friends, vote for Kelly and tell a friend. And I think that it's not just about that, but it's actually about, please just vote and tell a friend. I think that young people often get a bad rap for not voting, but there are people of all ages that don't vote. And I think that people just need that personal connection to get them to vote sometimes. My mother-in-law will be voting for the very first time here in Falmouth, and it's because, it better be because of me. I never thought to ask her, actually, but people just need that, sometimes that personal reason to actually vote.
Thank you, John.
Well, I think, very first off, want to thank the town of Falmouth for allowing me to serve you for the past 3 years. Thank you. And what I would say is I was also on the superintendent search committee. I want to help with the transition and keep stability with regards to that. And a lot of the stuff that my viewpoint is, if excuse the grammar, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And a lot of times people look at these new ideas and everything, and let's do this, let's do that. I want to say, do we need to do it? And it's something that would help. And also, I just want to say, through 3 other people's viewpoint of why to vote for me, John Fenari, is one of them was a friend of my oldest daughter. The parents said that they think that I have a good handle on different dynamics in school as far as differentiation, because I have one kid that's an AP student, one kid that's a advanced placement, one kid that's a CP student, college prep, and then one kid that's a multi-age learning center kid that's in special ed. And then one of my son's favorite teachers, who I've become friends with over the years, said, hey, that his buddy said, that Fenari guy, he's like a regular guy and has a straightforward point of view. And I'm like, I am. And then the last one would be a young man that I've actually known over the years through volunteer efforts in my daughter's MELC class. And his dad said it was okay to share the story. His name is Peter. And Peter's dad, Ricky, was driving, and he said, Peter, we went by one of your signs. He said, you know, I'm going to vote for Olivia's dad. He goes, I really like him. And Ricky said to me, he said, you know, those kids really like you, John. So regardless of whether I win or lose, I've got Peter's vote, and that's good enough for me.
Thank you. Natalie.
I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and FCTV for hosting this evening's event. Having grown up in Falmouth, I'm deeply rooted to this town and want to help ensure that the district continues to be successful. As a parent of 3 children in the Falmouth Public Schools, I have a unique perspective of the needs, realities, and concerns of students and parents. As a member of the school committee, it would be my duty to serve as an advocate for the diverse student body and to be receptive and responsive to parents, staff, students, and community members. I believe that our schools exist to serve the educational needs of all students. Ensuring that the resources are equitable across the spectrum is a delicate but necessary balance. There is a significant population of students and families with serious social and emotional needs in Falmouth. A priority for the district needs to be solidifying and furthering programs to not only serve the students affected by these challenges, but to also support their families, peers, and the teachers who are impacted on a daily basis. Concurrently, the district should continue to explore creative initiatives for students who are capable of increased academic challenges to keep this demographic engaged and stimulated. Increasing parental engagement is another issue that I would like to address. Parents and families being active and engaged participants in their child's education is vital for academic success. Initiatives would include establishing effective homeschool communication that recognizes that not all families in the district have consistent access to email and social media, connecting families and students to community resources that strengthen and support students' learning and well-being, strengthening families' knowledge and skills to support and extend their child's learning at home in an effort to reduce the achievement gap that occurs over summer break, and engaging families in meaningful volunteer opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. John Fenari, Natalie Kanelopoulos, James Newman, and Kelly Welch. Thank you. With Planning Board up next.
So here are the list of questions sorted through. That's planning board,
And
this
that's
is
selectmen. Okay. Okay. Okay, Planning Board. There's more than one of you.
See the Mike Heelan show for a little bit up here.
Okay, and a reminder, the same format, up to a minute to answer questions, up to 2 minutes for closing. Be sure to pull your mics close so everybody can hear what you're saying. Our candidates are Charlotte Harris, Michael Halen, and Robert Leary. Welcome. Thanks for being here. We'll start with you, Charlotte. First question is, what do you bring to the office of Planning Board, and what do you hope to accomplish if elected?
I think what I bring now is 1 year experience on the planning board, and I'm glad that that's true. In addition to that, much of my life has been spent in planning positions. Teacher's plan, I taught for a long time. I was a central office administrator in Boston, and my work was very much engaged in planning programs, planning to implement them, planning to get them pushed all the way through. So I think I bring that background to it, but more than that, I think I bring a real love of this town and the way it's a unique place on the Cape We are a really complete community. Some communities, there are fewer people, they're not year-round places, they don't have the span across the economic spectrum, across the racial spectrum that Falmouth does. Falmouth is a real complete place, and I'd like to see it stay that way and serve everybody.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you for having us here. What I bring to the planning board is currently I am the chairperson of the Cultural Commission in town. I am also on the Rec Committee. Working with these different committees in town, I found that we have to somehow tie Main Street to East Main Street, down to the Gus Canty Center, down to the marina. So by working with all these different committees in town, I've heard different people's, what they're looking for from the planning board, and I think I can bring them all together and do a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlotte had a really good answer. I really liked what she had to say. I've also been a teacher, and that does play in a lot, as anybody who's taught knows that there is a lot of planning involved. You have to anticipate things, you have to plan for things, and as a planning board member for, I think, going on 9 years, my experience has shown me that I've always been a person that is proactive as opposed to being reactive. And being a member of the Local Comprehensive Planning Committee, we've laid out a master plan for the town for the next 50 years, and you have to look ahead and try and anticipate what's coming down the road. You set some goals, you have some broad policies, and then you work on the action items, and those are great because you can interchange them and introduce new ones as you go. And I would like to continue with that, and I think that's been one of the things I've most enjoyed doing since I've been on the board.
That is time. All right, Michael, we start with you this time. Coastal resilience has become a critical issue for the town. What would you recommend the town do to address increased flooding, coastal erosion, and infrastructure destruction?
So one thing that we can do right now is floating wetlands. Floating wetlands are basically floating devices off the coast. They are made with natural plants from the environment, local plants, and it creates a barrier so when waves come to wash out the shore, it hits this floating wetland and it stops the impact on our shorelines. They also are a place for fish to feed and nice to look at, and you can look them up online. A lot of cities are using these now to, not only do they protect the shorelines from coastal erosion, but they also help with the pollution in the water. And there's a grant right now, $500,000 grants that are due May 25th to hopefully bring some money to Falmouth, and I'd look forward to filling out that grant after I'm elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
First thing we need to do is take a regional approach, because climate change doesn't just happen to Falmouth. So what happens in Mashpee or Bourne or Hyannis can affect us. So we need to look at that approach first. Because there really is no one boss of coastal resilience on the Cape. It affects the whole region. The other thing that we need to look at is infrastructure. When we have damage to infrastructure that's already in place, we tend to replace it with what was destroyed, rather than re-engineering it so it doesn't do that. So that's another thing that we need to look at. And also looking at restoring our coast, whether it's with living reefs or breakwaters or renourishing our beaches. When I had rotator cuffs, I used to windsurf off of Trunk River, and I could rig my board on the beach there, and now you can't. So we need to do something like that, because we went to school on Hurricane Sandy and Katrina.
I'm sorry, that's time, Robert.
Oh.
Charlotte?
This was the question that we were sent in advance, so I had a chance to think about it. And I really like the question because it puts a spotlight on the planning board's responsibility for long-range planning. We have a plan for this. It's in the long-range plan. It's been worked on. People in this room, Pat Cafoot, Jim Fox, Bob, worked on that, and it's a good plan. It has 4 major goals. They deal with enhancing our ecosystem, protecting our infrastructure, doing something to increase our resiliency, doing something to make our institutions adaptable. It's got action plans in it. The action plans deal mostly, because this plan was adopted by the town, created and adopted 4 years ago. The action plans deal mostly with planning, which was appropriate at that time. And part of that plan was for the Board of Selectmen to do something about coastal resilience. They did. Charlie's in the room, and Charlie McCaffrey is leading a committee now to give us the answer on action items for that. I recommend the town pay a lot of attention to that, to what Charlie has to say, because I think it will be helpful. But what the plan doesn't have, and I think would be very helpful, you know, there's a continuing process for updating that plan. And I think
I'm
as part
sorry,
of that, we
Charlotte,
should
that's
add
time,
an
Charlotte.
accountability portion. It
We're gonna
really
move on
needs
to
it.
the next question. Robert, how would you encourage increased energy efficiency in the building of new structures, both commercial and residential?
Well, the stretch code didn't pass at town meeting. I am a builder, and I've been a construction supervisor for Habitat for Humanity for 25 years, and we're building pretty much net zero houses through the use of solar panels and heat pumps. And we need to promote solar where it's appropriate, wind where that's appropriate, and I say that we include a lot of it in the building code. You go back to the 70s when I first started building, everybody made a big deal out of insulating houses. Oh, it's going to add to the cost and make it more expensive. Well, it has just become part of life. So I think a lot of the energy codes will just become part of life.
Thank you. Charlotte?
I think that our insurance plans are forcing even homeowners who are not trying to build something new into adding a lot of things that will make their homes greener and safer. We probably will have to try again something toward the stretch plan to see if that's going to go. We should be updating the zoning provisions so that anything that's built in the future is going to be more resilient. We ought to be thinking about where we're putting things so that we don't have to have things that are going to be eroded and washed away, and be thinking about ways to deal with moving a retreat from the coast and safer buildings and putting it into the building code.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I think that the planning board passed a bylaw, I think it was 2 years ago, to solar panel bylaw, and that has to be readdressed, especially with some of the solar panel additions in this town the past few months. And I know that there was a plan for the bylaw, and that plan might not have gone completely as the planning board wanted it to, and so that has to be readdressed. I think the most important thing is that if we can get solar panels in as many places as possible right now and offer any kind of credits and incentives to do so, it'd be the best interest of the town.
Thank you. Next question, Charlotte, we start with you this time. What changes in the present zoning bylaws would you advocate to encourage more affordable housing?
Well, it's something that the planning board is working on now, and I'm part of a 3-member committee to work on it. Falmouth doesn't have a multifamily zone. We don't have zoning for it. Multifamily housing is mentioned at several places in the zoning code, but no specific provision is made for it. No incentives have been prepared for it. So I think our first step is to work through a process to bring to town meeting a recommendation for a multifamily zone. And we are working on that now, and I'd like to continue to work on it.
Thank you. Michael?
I think a huge component of the multifamily homes and the affordable housing is where we're putting them in town. Down the Heights in particular, they just put in sewers to save Little Pond. And right now, in front of the zoning board of appeals, there is a subdivision, Hemus Circle, and that's putting 28 units on 4 acres, and part of those 4 acres are conservation. Now, when we did the sewers, we did that to save Little Pond, not to, shove subdivisions in a very environmentally unstable area, and that has to be addressed. And that's something that I would like to look at, where we're putting these subdevelopments and where we're putting these multifamily houses, and we're not just sticking them in places that's going to further injure our environment.
Thank you. Robert?
The business redevelopment zone allows for apartments above businesses, and that's the east end of Main Street. And that has not developed quite as much as we would like to see. So I would like to encourage that a little bit more. We actually asked the Cape Cod Commission if they would do a study for that when they were looking at the Davis Straits study, but they didn't want to go further up East Main, so that's something that the planning board, I think, will take on its own. The Davis Straits reset, too, looks at the same thing where you're going to increase housing in a denser location where you're closer to transportation, you're on the sewer, And you're making homes that are walkable and cyclable for people to keep it so that we want to strengthen the village centers, whether it's Falmouth itself, the East Falmouth, North Falmouth, or West Falmouth.
Thank you. All right, Michael, we start with you this time. We're into audience questions now. What would your recommendation be for the problems of older women who cannot stay in their homes and cannot find apartments?
Well, that goes back to the accessory apartment question, and I'm all for that. However, I think that the accessory apartment bylaw, if we're going to pass as a town, we should talk to the Conservation Commission, the zoning board, and make sure that everything we're doing is done the proper way. And we're not just saying, we're the planning board, this is what we're going to do, and then, go through battles, for over a year. Because last year at town meeting, it passed. And then this year, the past year, we've had some issues with it. So that's something that, as a planning board, it's a great idea, but we have to make sure everything's in line before we move forward with it.
Robert?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. What would your recommendation be for the problems of older women who cannot stay in their homes and cannot find apartments?
Well, the accessory apartment bylaw was intended to meet those types of needs. Short from creating more housing that has smaller units in it, if we do a multi-housing zone, then I think the bylaw could be tweaked a bit. Right now, you can either have your apartment in the existing home or an accessory structure. So if you wanted to get out of a two-story building into a single-story building, I think that's would be the way to go.
Thank you. Charlotte?
I agree that accessory apartments are a big part of solving that. They've certainly proved to be popular. We are working on the implementation and improving it and working with the other boards that are involved in that. But I come back to the multifamily housing. Multifamily housing isn't just apartments. It's cluster housing, it's townhouses, it's putting residential things above commercial areas so that you're right downtown. You can walk to the library, you can walk to the stores so that everything is convenient to you. And the Davis Straits plan that I hope you're all getting familiar with provides for a lot more spaces to put in many of these different kinds of multifamily housing. Once we have that zoning set up for it and an incentive system set up for it, I think it's going to go a long way to helping.
Robert, you start this time. How could you better inform town meeting members on zoning amendments? Often zoning changes get voted down because town meeting members do not understand them well enough to feel comfortable voting for them.
When we were doing the accessory apartment bylaw, we did some TV series with FCTV that we broadcasted. We actually sent it out to town meeting members. So education is the key component to that. People have to have the correct information so that we have a saying that we don't want to make sausage on town meeting floor. And when you start making amendments to things, it has unintended consequences. So I think between the different types of media, whether it's through Facebook, Twitter, just in a meeting with the town planner today, he was talking about that, how we need to better communicate and a lot more outreach, and especially to younger people in town who don't read the paper or who don't watch TV. So communication is the key for me.
Thank you. Charlotte?
I agree, communication and education. We've talked about this on the planning board in connection with the Davis Straits plan. How many of you actually are familiar now with the Davis Straits plan? That's not all the hands. It's quite a few, though. But there's a lot in it. That's a big plan. It has a number of things in it that you might not know enough about to feel comfortable with. Form-based zoning, for example, if you don't know enough about that. The board, led by Jim, has learned a lot about a process, and we think that if we work a process really well for Davis Straits, there'll be enough meetings, enough time for the stakeholders who are immediately involved, enough time for the town meeting members who will make the decision, enough time for the public who will be impacted to come to any one of the forums we provide, or the outreach kind of efforts through FCTV that they make available, so that people will know enough about it that when the changes that could put that plan into action come forward, they will be acceptable.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, anything the planning board does, we would have to assume that we're doing this as a forever plan, so we'd want to get everyone as involved as possible. Cape Cod Times is here, Enterprise is here, Engage Falmouth is here, and those are different, FCTV, different ways, TV, print, social media to get the word out. And right now you can go online and see a lot of different campaigns on social media getting the word out, and that's what we should be doing for every kind of planning board bylaw change.
Thank you. We'll move on to closing statements now, and Charlotte, your turn to go first, up to 2 minutes.
Okay, for those who don't know me, I live with my sister Mary, it's right over there, in North Falmouth. We've had a house in North Falmouth since 1991, so that's 27 years of experience here in town. Before that, I've been a teacher, I've been a central office administrator, and now I have 1 year's experience on the planning board, so I would bring that sharp learning curve that's a little bit behind me. I think it's fair to say that everybody who's here in town and in this room really loves Falmouth. If you could just have a few little tweaks, it would be perfect. And I love Falmouth, and I have a few little tweaks that I'm interested in for the planning board over the next 3 years. The one that's most important to me, really, is the multifamily planning, multifamily zone that we've already sort of got in motion. We think we're going to be able to come forward with a good one, partially because of the way we're working on it, working with the town employees who are full-time, knowing these areas, calling in other people, getting enough input so that by the time we are able to bring it to public hearings, we'll have a pretty good product, and by the time it goes through public hearings and gets to town meeting, it will be an acceptable multifamily housing thing. I would like to be able to continue to work on that. The planning board, before I got there, quite a bit before, had put in motion an update of the zoning code. You've seen it, it's a big thick book, and I've heard from the lawyers who come before us that it's really one of the most difficult zoning laws, bylaws on the Cape to work with, because it's grown over time and it needs to be updated, and the planning board knew it, they've arranged for it, there are consultants working on it, but they're working on it maybe not at the speed that's really going to be helpful. So one of the things that the new planner wants to do, and we want to do, is push that forward and add to it graphics, steps, things that will make it much more user-friendly than it is now. So if you have a building project and you look at that book, you will know how to pursue it, and it will be easy for you to do.
That's time. Michael?
All right, I'm Michael Halen. I grew up in Falmouth, born and raised here, down the Heights. And I have 3 children at home, a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. I told them I'd say hi to them. So hi, Callan, Aurora, and Nolan. They probably should be in bed, but they're probably not. And the reason I want to do this is that the planning board has a 5-year, 10-year, 50-year plan. And the way I've lived my life, I'm not going to be here in 50 years, but my kids will be. So I want to make sure that I put into, and we all put into plans, the best possible plans that we can do. Extend Main Street down to East Main Street out to Davisville Lights and further. Make all the sidewalks handicap accessible, which they're not right now. The senior center, I was working with that. More parking. We're working with the rec committee for an outdoor, all-inclusive playground. So all these things in town, let's tie them all together and make it great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Robert?
I'm Bob Leary. When I have driven around the country and you drive into a town, what you start to see now is every corporation and franchise lining the main dragon into the town, and that's always bothered me, and I never wanted to see that happen to Falmouth. And you can sit on the sidelines and groan about things, and my mother told me a long time ago, if you're not willing to do something about it, you don't have any right to complain. So when I had the opportunity to get on the planning board and realized that I could have an impact on that, I jumped at the opportunity. And I really want to maintain that, keeping the character of Falmouth so that we don't look like every other town. Some of the things that we have done as a planning board, we took over the role of design review. So now when a building comes before us, not only do we do site plan review, but we do design review as well. And I've been working on the local comprehensive plan, and now we're in the process of reviewing that. There's a lot of work I still want to do. I'm just not ready to let go of it. It's just too much work, and I'm free Tuesday nights.
Right, thank you. Charlotte Harris, Michael Halen, and Robert Leary, thank you so much. Okay, selectmen candidates. Come on up, selectmen candidates.
Sure. I'll take one. I would love, yeah.
Okay, our candidates for selectmen, this is one seat for a 3-year term, Mark Finneran, Doug Jones, and Alexander Gesson. Thank you, welcome to the three of you. Same format, a minute up for questions, 2 minutes for closing statements, and we will begin the first question with you, Mark. What do you regard as the most important strengths required of a selectman?
I think a selectman should be willing to educate the people that in the town to all facets of all the issues. I think they should be willing to listen to all people, all sides, and all opinions. And I think in the end, they should have the fortitude to make the decision that they think is the best to most properly serve the people that have voted for them. And I think it's that simple. I think oftentimes you vote for a selectman, and I've said this before, and they seem to go on to serve the management rather than the taxpayer. And I pledge to you that I would never operate in that fashion.
Thank you. Doug?
I think the most important thing for a selectman to be able to do is to be open-minded, be informed about the decisions they're making, be aware of the fiscal impacts that their decisions are going to have on the town, on the people, and being aware that what they decide and the policies they set affect everyone in the town, that they are responsible to each person in the town, each resident, not just the people who voted for them and not just the people who voted, but for every town meeting, every person who lives in town, whether they're summer residents and year residents, and you need to really do the homework necessary to understand the issues behind it, the decisions you're going to make. Because our job as the policy makers are to look forward to the future and to also set a budget that can really make sure that we're fulfilling the needs and demands of the town.
Thank you. Alexander?
For many years, I keep top management positions in private sector, and that involves making decisions, very important decisions, sometimes critical. What I learned doing that work, that there are two extremely important items which should be used each and every time, and these are deep analysis and collaboration. And this is what I'm will bring to the table if I'm selected.
Thank you. Doug, we start with you this time. Please name an issue that you consider important to the future of the town and describe how you would propose that the selectmen address that issue.
Well, since we currently have plans to build a new senior center, to continue the work of the Water Quality Management Committee, to renovate and maintain our playing fields, one issue that I consider important involves providing full fire safety protection throughout the town. To complete this endeavor, we must first consider how our present stations are being manned. Under the current arrangement, some of our stations are manned by a single firefighter. In addition, we need to investigate the response times throughout the town and be prepared to build a new fire station to better serve the West Falmouth, North Falmouth, and Hatchville areas. While studies can sometimes delay, the first appropriate action for this project would be to do a comprehensive analysis of the town's needs and capabilities concerning protection and ambulance coverage. We may need to consider developing a public-private partnership to provide the most effective way of providing ambulance coverage throughout the town. Of course, we must remember there are other important capital projects that we must consider. The status of town infrastructure with the threat of sea rise, security of coastline, and how to provide more affordable housing.
All right, thank you. Alexander?
One of extremely important issues which our town faces right now, as well as the whole country, is opioid epidemic. And we have to address it the best way possible. A little bit of statistics. Average death rate per 100,000 people in the country is 16 people. In the New England, that number goes to more than 24 people. So we live in very dangerous area. In the same time, state of Vermont, which also is New England, they managed to cut it almost in half, implementing a very smart and effective plan. That plan involves, first of all, moving main activity related to opioid epidemic from law enforcement to healthcare. And they created long-term care of people. Here, if somebody, the only treatment people get here, you get overdosed, they take you to the emergency room, you get a shot and forgotten again. In the state of Vermont, a person...
Oh, we have to leave it there. Thank you. Mark?
We have new building projects that we have to deal with. Definitely we need a fire station. Our response times are bad, unacceptable. We need the new senior center, but also we need to maintain the infrastructure that we have. Currently, we are neglecting, deferring maintenance on, one I'd like to mention is our water infrastructure. The National Fire Protection Association says that all fire hydrants are required to be inspected, tested, and maintained on a regular schedule conducted annually with additional inspection criteria every 5 years in accordance with NFPA fire code inspection requirements. These inspections and testing are required to be conducted by a licensed fire protection technician and to remain in fire code compliance to ensure that the fire hydrants will function properly and necessary to fight structural fires and save lives. Currently, we don't do any of that, or very little of it.
We'll have to leave it there. That's time. Alexander, we start with you this time. What criteria would you use to prioritize major capital projects?
First of all, it is importance of the project, money which is required, and how critical it is for the town. I think one of extremely critical issues we are facing hurricanes, storms, windstorms more and more often. Last March we were without electricity for basically most of us for almost a week. It came back again and again 3 times in a row. We have to figure out how to make our electrical grid more reliable and not falling down so easily when storm comes. And we will have more and more of these storms.
Mark?
The reality is we're never going to have enough money for everything that we need. And on the other hand, I'd like to continue with what I was saying before. We need to maintain what we have. Another incident that's come up recently is the condition of our fields. I mean, for the want of simple liming, these fields have fallen into a terrible state of disrepair. We need to balance maintenance as well as capital projects. As I say, we're never going to have the money for everything we need. We just have to be intelligent. We have to manage things properly, and unfortunately, that isn't always occurring.
Thank you, Doug.
It's not an easy question to figure out how you prioritize capital projects. You have to weigh each one as it comes along. I would actually say over the past 6 years, when I've been on the board, we've done a very good job with this. We've done over $90 million of projects without raising the tax rate. We've found the windows of opportunity to be able to slide them into previous debts. We have the same thing with the field project coming forward, where we can get the new field out at the high school without having to raise the taxes. These kind of decisions are what allows the town to get a AAA bond rating, as mentioned earlier, by Standard & Poor's. The town is in an excellent financial position because of some of the decisions, some of the hard decisions we've made. Sometimes where we've had to say we can't afford this right now, but we can put money aside and have a capital committee, a capital fund put aside for debt that we were going to avoid and be able to pay for projects from the coffers that we have, from the savings we have, not from raising the tax rate.
Thank you. Alexander?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure.
I thought you started with me, no?
Oh, I started with you, I'm sorry. It's your turn, Martha, to go first. There are 5 selectmen and 36 volunteer boards and committees in Falmouth. How can the selectmen most efficiently and effectively interact with these numerous committees and boards?
They are supposed to meet at least yearly with these, all the boards and committees. It doesn't always happen, but a fairly good effort is made. I think that the liaison portion of it could be better exercised, but when you have 36, that's 9 or 10 committees per selectman. I mean, certainly we'd like to see on the committee I'm on, we'd like to see a selectman there at least every other month. I think a greater effort can be made there. We do have Megan English Braga as our liaison, and I can say with our new chairman and her help, we have moved forward considerably. I also think that there should be a 10-year term limit on all boards and committees because they seem to stagnate. The committee I'm on, again, solid waste is a perfect example of that. We have a new chairman, and we're really moving things forward and making a great pace.
I'm sorry. Doug, same question.
I think to have the 35 committees that we have out there, one of the things we can do and must do as a board is recognize how much hard work these boards put into it on a volunteer basis. And we need to acknowledge that on a regular basis. The liaison organization we have right now gives us about 6 or 7 committees that we're responsible for, being in communication with. That's something that we can do better, and it's something we need to push, but also to acknowledge that their work is so important. And the easiest way to do that is when these committees come to the board with a request, with some advice, with a suggestion for a new bylaw, the board must take action and move forward with that and respect the kind of work that's being done by these committees.
Alexander?
Yes, I agree that the main thing is to smart planning and quick response. These 2 approaches will, it's difficult, 35 committees is extremely difficult to coordinate activities with, but if you plan it correctly, you can do it. And that's what we do in private sector.
Doug, we'll start with you. We're on to audience questions now. What programs are you advocating to help veterans deal with opiates? And I'm assuming they mean opiate addiction.
Programs for veterans deal with opioids. One thing that veterans really need to know, and this is not just the opioid problem, but so many of the problems with veterans, is the services that are available to veterans out there. How to get veterans to come in and take advantage of what services are available? Boy, that's a tough question. I could never get my father to see himself as a veteran who might be able to receive help, and it was available to him. But veterans aren't the kind of people who say, no, yeah, I'll go get help. That's not like them. And so it's something that we really have to push out, that we have to reach out to these veterans and let them know there is help available, it's okay to get it, but we need to be doing a better job of reaching out to them, not just expecting that they're going to come get it.
Thank you. Alexander?
Yes. Reaching out to veterans is extremely important. This is no question about that. But also we need the healthcare services which will address that issue. We need to have the services to bring veterans who need that to the services and help them that way. So we have to create this structure to treat epidemic.
Mark?
First off, they need a place to call their own. My stepfather was a veteran, and he had a late onset PTSD issue. Veterans find comfort in those who understand what they're going through. A couple of years ago, I tried to purchase the Cape Cod Baptist Church on East Falmouth Highway to use as an overflow while we waited for the senior center and have it as a veteran center, which they could, there was room there for housing and everything. I mean, the critical thing is veterans need other veterans, and they need a place of their own, and currently, we do not have that. And I think it would be a great step forward if we the veterans had a place they could call their own, to meet with their own kind and those who understand what they're going through the best.
Thank you. Alexander, we start with you this time. Do you feel there is an active, useful employee evaluation process in town departments?
Since I am very new to that topic, I hope it is in place, but I cannot say right now.
Mark?
Basically, the only evaluation we have is the town manager evaluation. I think all department heads should be evaluated by their subordinates. I think many people would, their eyes would be opened greatly. There are employees that I'm aware of that have been here since the early 2000s and have yet to be evaluated. We really need to do this, and across the board, as I said, all department heads should be evaluated by their superiors and their subordinates. I think everyone would find it quite eye-opening, and it's a great way where we could improve all services in this town.
Thank you. Doug?
So of course, the Board of Selectmen are only responsible for the town manager, and the Board of Selectmen does do an evaluation process, an extensive process of the town manager every year. And one of the things that we've put forward in our most recent evaluation of our town manager is that he encourages evaluations of the other department heads, and the department heads are evaluating the employees within their department. Some of the departments currently do evaluations. It is not something that is done universally with the exact same evaluation form for each department, but it is done by some departments, and we're continuing to push to have more departments make sure it's a part of their program.
Mark, we start with you. Will you support the Falmouth gun buyback on June 9th? Why or why not?
I don't see why not. I mean, it's done all over the country. You know, if you have firearms, you want them out of your house, there's no better way, and you get a couple of bucks to boot. I see nothing wrong with it. As I said, it's been successful all over the country. I mean, a lot of the stuff you buy back is garbage, but, you know, nothing against it.
Doug?
I wholeheartedly support the gun buyback program. I think any way to reduce the number of guns that are out in the streets, in the homes, potentially going into the schools would be a fantastic idea. I encourage you all to, if you have them, bring them into the police station.
Alexander?
I agree entirely. If to spend money, this is the wisest money spent. This buyback maybe could save even a single life if it is saved. It is good. It's not enough to say that it is good.
Doug, your turn to start first. In regards to concerns about school shootings, I feel not enough emphasis has been put on providing additional financial support for schools and teachers. What ideas or plans do you have to provide schools with additional support and dollars?
I'm not sure I'd limit just to school safety and guns issue. It is something that, as a educator for the past 35 years, I think to get some funding into the schools is important. We did suffer an economic downturn where we had to cut some of the funding to the schools a few years ago. We're now in a position where we can encourage the schools to look for ways that they can reinstitute some of the programs they had, whether it's extending the hours for some of the, reducing the size of classes, as Kelly mentioned earlier, or whether it's looking for additional training for the teachers. I wouldn't limit just to schools, to gun safety and school safety, but I think there are some ways that we can try to increase the funding for the schools.
Alexander?
Gun violence and danger to schools, everybody is aware of that. So additional money spent on that, no question, it is a must. How they are used, we have to deal with police, with town government to spend this money wisely, but money are needed, and they should be spent for that.
Mark?
I think most of these school incidents, behind them, there's a psychological issue. Many of these students have been flagged, have reached out for help, and it wasn't there. I think that's really as important as anything. Also, most perhaps all, or nearly all, of the perpetrators of these acts have been subject to bullying. I mean, and constant bullying. And it seems to be more accepted than it ever was. Again, I think these are two issues that really don't get enough attention, and the end result of the inattention is these incidents of violence. And like I said, they don't just happen overnight. I mean, there are many indications beforehand, and
thank
the
you.
ball gets dropped often.
Alexander, we start with you this time. Land use regulation is always an important issue in town. How would you approach having the regulations the town needs to preserve its character, promote appropriate development, provide greater housing diversity, and yet make them understandable and accessible to the whole citizenry of the town? So that's a mouthful.
That's some question.
It's a big question.
5 minutes for this one? An hour?
To understand what is going on is extremely important. Question is how to do it. To inform people is one thing. How to correctly do this zoning and what the purpose should be. I think the main purpose at that moment should be affordable housing. Whatever is needed to achieve that, whatever zoning rules should be changed, modified, we have to evaluate them, of course, not to overload our infrastructure, but we need it, and we need more affordable housing every day, and it will not go away.
Unfortunately, we, in our desire to create large amounts of open space, we remove from availability land that would normally be locations for affordable housing. These larger tracts of land tend to be outside of town, the cheaper land, if you will, and that's removed. Most of it. So I think zoning is definitely going to have to be amended. We definitely need larger zones for affordable housing, cluster housing, any and all types of affordable housing. We're just going to have to be creative, because unfortunately we have taken much of the land away that previously would have been used for affordable housing.
Doug?
This is certainly a lengthy and complicated question. Fortunately, most of it's going to go to the planning board, and it is not up to the Board of Selectmen. And I'm thrilled to hear that the planning board is taking it on by realizing that our current zoning code needs to be revised, that they're being pushed forward to revise that more quickly. The simple way of really using this is to work on the land use map, to make sure that it is readable and people understand how different lands are going to be used in town. It is a straightforward process. I know Thomas Bott is looking forward to get going, to make sure that we can easily look at the map of town and see how the land should be used currently and how it should be used in the future. And I know the planning board is ready to get forward on that right away.
Mark, our final audience question starts with you. What actions do you think the Board of Selectmen can take to make sure the town of Falmouth moves toward zero greenhouse gas emissions?
I think that the trend is in that direction anyway. Although we did not pass the stretch code, I mean, the houses that we're building now are incredibly tight and incredibly efficient. The use of solar is growing in leaps and bounds. I don't think there's enough hydronic solar used to heat water and to add to or work in conjunction with whatever heating you have. I know in Vermont, where a friend of mine works, they have condensing boilers that share a manifold with hydronic solar panels, and basically all you're using is the electricity on sunny days to heat your house, and your gas furnace never comes on. I think we're trending that way, and the economy of vehicles is
That's
increasing all the time.
Thank you. Doug?
Again, some of these questions you have to understand are not the purview of the Board of Selectmen. But what the Board of Selectmen can do is have the town be a role model for this is the way to do it. To make sure that the town buildings, the town schools, that they're as close to being net zero energy as possible. And that once we set that forward, we tried to pass the building code for the planning board. It was a stretch code, it didn't happen, but we can be setting a model for this is the way the town's gonna do it, and to be to respect the energy level, to respect the climate of that we're around. That will set a tone, I think, for the rest of the town to see, oh, I see how they're doing it, I guess I can do that too. And it also becomes economically makes sense, that if we can save money by making an investment in good energy efficiency, we'll be able to have even a healthier budget every single year.
Thank you, Alexander.
Energy efficiency is extremely important, but we have tons and tons of houses which will be very difficult to adjust. In the same time, what we can do, we can try to use and create as much and use of renewable energy. Any way we can get it, there are multiple resources, multiple ways to get renewable energy, and this is what we have to concentrate.
We're going to move to closing comments now, up to 2 minutes, and Doug, it's your turn to go first.
First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for organizing this evening, Mindy Todd for serving as moderator, FCTV for filming, the library staff for making this space available. I feel very comfortable here. This is actually where I met my wife when I was 12 years old, just in a room next door. As a native of Falmouth and a graduate of Falmouth High School, I remain committed to donating my time, experience, and ability towards Falmouth's successful management. I'm extremely proud that Falmouth is my hometown, and 21 years ago, I chose to return to this community to raise my family because of the town's strengths and values. Falmouth's government, its civic pride, and strong educational system are some of the town's many assets that drew me to return. When I think about the contributions my parents have made in their lives to this community, I realize it is their efforts that have allowed me to enjoy the freedoms and benefits of our democracy. During my time on the Board of Selectmen, the Board has succeeded in building consensus among the various appointed and elected boards to promote a positive environment within the administrative structure of the town. We have begun 2 major projects that will benefit a large number of the town's population. Our talented and dedicated Senior Center Design Committee has assured us that we are on schedule to begin construction of this long-awaited structure in the fall of 2008. At the last town meeting, plans for building a multi-purpose field at the high school were approved with overwhelming support, and a debt exclusion will be placed on the May 15th ballot. And I strongly encourage you all to vote yes on question 1, so we can move forward with our plans to build the field at the high school campus, to build new outdoor recreation space for our seniors and children at the Gus Can Community Center. I am proud of the work that the Board of Selectmen has accomplished over the past 6 years, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue this work for another term. I ask you to vote for Doug Jones for Selectman on May 15th. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexander?
Same as my neighbor. I made Falmouth my home 21 years ago, in 1997. My wife and myself built a family here. We are raising 2 boys who are students at Falmouth High. But you, I guess, figured out already that I wasn't born either in Falmouth nor in the United States. I was born in the Soviet Union, and that country stripped me of the citizenship long time ago. But I was very lucky that this country allowed me to come here as a political refugee. I was a stateless person at first, but then eventually in 1986, I became a U.S. citizen, and I'm very proud of that. I enjoy living in this country, in this free country, every day. I love because the country for real freedom here, where every vote counts and every opinion can be heard, even if you don't like it. As I said earlier, for many years I work in private sector, and I'm going to use, if I'm elected, my experience from there in this new job. And also I would like to thank League of Women Voters as well as Falmouth TV for arranging that meeting. I believe that civic engagement is extremely important. Also, we have to, if I am a member of selectmen, we have to allow and provide ability to each and every citizen of our town.
Thank you. Mark.
What can I do? Yeah, to be heard by a selectman, by email, by phone. I promise
Thank you.
spend some time.
It's
yeah.
Mark Finneran's turn.
Hi. Of course, first I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on every year, and FCTV for covering it, all you people for coming down and watching, and everybody at home. Our family's had a house here since 1933, and I chose to live in Falmouth because I love it. I've been active for well over 10 years, trying to do my best to make things better. And in order to do that, I need your help. I need you to vote. Some parts of town, some neighborhoods, some people participate almost fully, yet don't go that extra step and vote. I would like to implore you all to do so on May 15th. It's your duty. And if you spend that 15 minutes it takes to go out and vote, I'll give you the rest of the year and everything I have, and try to make this place just a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Finneran, Doug Jones, and Alexander Gessen are candidates for selectmen. Thank you, and thank you to all of you for being here this evening. Appreciate you coming out. Thanks.